Let's discuss Ubisoft's and Sony's E3 press conferences. Hello, everybody, to every single cool person out there listening to us. This is James with RedButtonJamFest.com, and welcome to another game, Dingleberries. Let's discuss. For the last two parts of the list, Let's Discuss, I was going over different things of E3. The first one, which is the Nintendo World Championship, and a Bethesda's press conference, and for the second part, I tackled the Microsoft press conference and EA's close to abysmal press conference. But what I'm going to try to do is, with each of these conferences, is just to kind of break them down, analyze them. I'm going to be a little bit off the cuff with my remarks and my reviews, so just want to let you know right ahead. But for today's discussion, I'm going to try to break down Ubisoft's and Sony's press conferences, which also occurred the same day as Microsoft's and EA's. But I just want to keep things kind of broken up in nice chunks, nice edible chunks of listening pleasure. Anyway, outside of me coming up with some weird analogies and metaphors, let's get right to it. For Ubisoft's, let's just put it this way. It's hosted yet again by Aisha Tyler, who, I'm going to start off, she's great. I actually think she's funny. She's a little bit overzealous with some of her humor, a little bit raunchy, but you know what? She could hold it. She's been showing that for the last few years, and I do support her keeping hosting a E3 press conference, not EA's. Even though if she wants to host EA's, that might be a good change of pace for those press conferences as well. So let's get to it. She started things off with South Park. And with probably one of the best titles I ever heard, South Park Fractured Butthole. Of course, that is a juvenile joke, but it's great. I love to hear that title every single day. It's taking that really fun RPG, The Stick of Truth, and evolving it into what I assume is going to be a superhero-based game. I'm assuming it's going to still be an RPG, unless they're really going to change the gameplay style with the story setting. But you still, as Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who also walked on stage to talk about the game, mentioned that you're still playing as a new kid from the previous game, but now it's going to dwell more into his backstory. And of course, they let out their old Trey Parker and Matt Stone humor with saying that the microphone stuck and swearing. I found it funny, but again, maybe not the most professional dialect for every single viewer, not the most professional. But I think this Ubisoft conference, unlike some of the others, is less about business and more about pulling theatrics. And what I mean by that is, let's face it, what other conferences had Jason Derulo literally just sing a song in front of a crowd that probably doesn't really care for his music, let alone would want to be seen dancing in front of millions of people? Yep, that's Ubisoft's. What other conferences has a comedian really head up their conference? Pretty much Ubisoft's. What other conferences have really talked about Let's Dance streaming services in the same sentence as having Angela Bassett's face portrayed in a video game? Pretty much Ubisoft. So Ubisoft is all about the theatrics with their conferences, and I actually really like that. It is, played to a crowd that might not be the gaming crowd, but at the same time, I was still entertained, so I didn't really hate it as much as maybe some other people did. But let's get back to the games here. I'm sorry I went off track there. But after South Park Fractured Butthole, Ubisoft had the balls, I think, to show off another new IP, and I think they've been pretty good about showing new IPs every year. That's why we got Assassin's Creed originally, that's why we got Watch Dogs, and now they built up to another new IP, which is For Honor. And For Honor looks like a very interesting game. And from what I gather is you're co-op as either Vikings or as Celtic warriors or as the samurai. And you're taking these wars, and then it's sword battles. But the sword battles look to be a little bit more like rock, paper, scissors-esque, where you have to defend up or defend middle, defend down, and then different kinds of hits go into that. So it's almost like playing mind games in an action game. And it's also online, so it's you and your friends taking on or sieging other places. I do like the concept, but I think it sounds pretty cool. And they did have mentions of the game, and I always do love original IPs as well. And I do love the fact when I see Vikings and Samurai, because I love both of that as well. Nothing against Knights, don't get me wrong, but I'm a Swedish at heart, but also love Japanese culture, so I nerded out at just seeing those two aspects in a game. So For Honor, give it kudos. And then another thing was they showed, I thought it was original IP, but I actually did my research this time around, unlike the other times, and they showed a simulation game, and it's Anno 2205, and apparently this is a sequel to other simulation-based games. I thought it was original IP also, but thankfully I guess I did my homework this time so I don't look like a humongous fool, even though I probably look like the biggest fool there is. But this game that they show off looked really interesting. I do like simulation games. I do like that in the same breath of a conference they could show action, humor, but then also show something that's a little more, I don't want to say slow-paced, but a little more simulation-based. You don't really see that much. You see a lot of shooters nowadays. You do see the action games. You know, to see something that now dwells into something that's a little bit more RTS slash SimCity-esque is really cool. So I'm interested in that game. I really am. And then, of course, during the Ubisoft conference, we've seen The Division, another new IP that they showed after they showed Watch Dogs the year prior. And The Division still looks pretty good. I don't know 100% what it is. It seems like a cover-based, persistent, semi-persistent online game with, well, of course, a cover-based shooter, as I mentioned before. But your friends could team up against other people and then maybe AI as well. And it takes place with a virus that attacked Black Friday. And it became a different kind of story. So it's a kind of technically a holiday game. I don't know, but its engine looks cool. There's still a lot of questions I need to be answered, but it looks fun, and I definitely still am interested. But it's good that they have a date on it. They had a date of March 6th of 2016. So now they actually roped in a date for it. So it's something that's now seemed like it's going to the end of the tunnel. But what I did find interesting was they mentioned that the beta is going to be available for all systems early next year. But they almost forgot the fact that earlier that day, they mentioned that the beta is going to be available exclusively on Xbox One for December. So maybe just a little flub there. But apparently the beta is going to be available for Xbox One first in December, and then I would assume on the PC and PS4 a few weeks later after that. Of course, a little bit of assumption thrown in, but, you know, I assume it's a flub, unless somehow the exclusive's off. Gloves taken away. Ubisoft's throwing it down. We take it back, Xbox One. That's me try to be dramatic. Anyway, back to the freaking games. What we also seen is Just Dance, and as I mentioned earlier, Jason Derulo did a song number for probably the hardest crowd ever. And I noticed this now. He tried to get Anisha Tyler to dance with him, and she totally denied him. She's pretty much above his pay grade. I'm sorry, Jason Derulo, even though you are pretty much blowing up as an artist, I assume. Don't really listen to your music. I just know that the one song, you sing like this all time. And that's pretty much also could go as a Bee Gees voice as well. I use that voice for multiple artists of pop music. I know, impressed. And they also showed outside of Just Dance, there's a streaming service that's associated with it. They also showed The Crew, even though that wasn't really a bonkers racing game from what I gather. They're showing that they're going to do a sequel. But get this, with completely overhauled graphics. I just love they had to have that in big old font along underneath the logo of The Crew Thrill Ride that just let everyone know. What they also showed, I thought was really cool, is they showed a freaking unicorn going under rainbows with a cat with guns, with a bandana, about to kick ass. And this is, of course, Trials Max's awesome level max, which Trials Max is kind of like a spiritual successor, Excitebike, just to let you know. So this looks like a really weird, demented sequel/expansion. I'm assuming. I'm guessing. I don't know. It looks fucking cool. I like the idea of it. So, you know, let's go with it. I'll go with that, you know. But outside of that, we also got Rainbow Six The Siege. We see that now instead of you going into a house and essentially acting as SWAT to get a hostage, now it's also becoming something where you're fighting terrorism as well with actors, of course. You know, they showed a great little build-up to it, and now it looks way more serious, and you had the guys on there, you know, doing their game dialect, and they're playing the game. It looks like there's still destructibility environment, which is good. I heard they're supposed to scale that back, so it looks like you can still blast a hole in the wall and create shortcuts for yourself. So hopefully that's kind of maintained, because I would love it looks like a fun game, but it looks like the kind of game that you need a tight-knit group of friends that will play it with you. So you could all have a nice coordinated plan, you know, maybe have a wild card in there and might fuck things up, but you still have that tight-knit plan of friends fighting against those terrorists or fighting against those guys that are just taking the president's daughter. It's from what I'm assuming. But Rainbow Six Siege still looks solid. I mean, I don't know if it's a day one pick for myself, but it looks like it's not a drag. Just Dance is not my kind of game, so it was a little bit of drag there. Things pick up when I saw the Siege. And they also showed off in this press conference as well Trackmania Turbo, which Trackmania is, from what I gather, was a PC game where you could create tracks. So now they can show you can randomly create tracks, and they had guys that were dressed up really nice, and they know their languages as they said goodbye. And that's pretty much sums up Trackmania Turbo. I know. And they ended off the show in such a cool way. They ended off the show showing off a new game in a series, but it made me think of Breaking Bad and all these other cool series, and now that's Ghost Recon Wildlands. I was about to say Wildlife. Oh my god, that would be a different game altogether. But Ghost Recon Wildlands looks... I mean, it's another shooter. I get that. But it looks way more expansive. It looks way open world. It seems like they still have that drop in, drop out online infrastructure, reminiscent of The Division and several other games that we're seeing now being in development. But its story looks cool. It looks like you're going to be busting up cartels. It looks a little bit more contemporary. I'm definitely looking forward to this one as well. So overall, what would I say about Ubisoft's conference? It was weird, awkward, fun, and had a very energetic CEO. And if you're thinking I'm forgetting something, no, I have not. Assassin's Creed Syndicate looks fun. I'm trying not to put my hopes way up because it seems like Assassin's Creed games range from to awesomeness. And it seems like every even number one is great. So if that's the case, then this one should be much better than Unity. But I'm still kind of holding my breath on it. But it still looks fun. It looks like Grand Theft Caddy. So, but in a way, that game and how that series is going is kind of like Ubisoft's conference. They've been from weird to amazing. And this one, for a third-party publisher, is my favorite one. And I mean, I would actually rate this a B. It's a very solid conference. It was entertaining. It still has a good host, even though she kind of goes over the line a few times. But they show a swap. They always show new IPs. I like that. They do show sequels to IPs. They still have the annualization of some games, which is Just Dance and Assassin's Creed, which could be a little grating. But overall, they showed some fun games. They did show some old ones. But at least put a date on it. Put a ring on that finger. They definitely, and they also got some great titles for their games. I mean, come on, South Park Fraction Butthole. It's a winner. So Ubisoft's conference, good job. Now we go into this where we have a break period. You can watch the little stage shows, live interviews, depending on what channel you watch. But let's get right to it. Now it's Sony. Sony caps off the night, and so Microsoft comes up at the sunset, and then the sunrise, and then at the sunset you have Sony. And Sony definitely took the gloves off. They started right away with Last Guardian, which became a running joke. Everybody said, oh yeah, Last Guardian, we've shown this E3, and then it's not. And that's been the case for half a decade or so. This game's been in development for quite some time. And the fact that they showed it off definitely shuts the house down. This game is from Japan Studios, who done other hardcore titles, I guess is the best way to put it, or artsy titles, but were fun, such as Ico and Shadows of Colossus. And this was from Ueda, who is still shown to have involvement. I mean, he was pointed out essentially in the crowd. He stands up and applauds, says, hey, I'm still working on this game, and sits down because there's been a lot of behind the scenes rumors that how his involvement in the game, that Matt Cerny's being brought in. He's now contract, or he's about to leave, But the fact that they're still attached his name to his title, they're still singling him out as the Creative Forces title. They're pretty much saying that this is still a game by the same people of these other two cherished titles. Please, it's still coming out. It's just coming out for PS4, and we're not gonna give it an exact date, but they're gonna give it an exact year. Apparently, that it's gonna come out 2016. Hold your breath. What I think of this game, I know this game is gonna be a tearjerker, and from what I see in this demo, it looks fun, but it kind of makes me think of Ico, where you have the handhold mechanic, or Shadow of Colossus, where you have to whistle to attract the boss's attention. From this demonstration, it looks like you're going to have to use your voice to attract the attention of your creature friend, and it's bird dog, dragon creature, and it's going to be this little puzzle platformer where you're going to have to... He's not going to act on a button press. He's going to have kind of a mind of his own, so you have to kind of rope him in to help you advance in a level, but at the same time you have to take care of him because he gets really red-eye and crazy around, I guess, things that look evil. That's apparently the thing from this demo. The graphics visually have that soft kind of cel-shaded lighting with high vertical structures. It definitely has that same influences of art that we've seen before with Japan Studios works. So it seems to nail down a lot. I still have high hopes for this game, but the problem I see with this game, and not to trail off too much, is that it's been in development for so long, and the expectations kind of slowly build over time that it's kind of inevitable that it's not going to meet those expectations. I'm not saying this is going to be a bad game. I haven't played it, but I don't know. I just have this sinking feeling that it's going to end up being a mild disappointment. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. I'm not to sound like a hater. I love Shadows of Colossus, and I did like Ico, even though I still need to beat Ico, so I need to be upfront about that. There's a game I still need to beat from Japan Studios. But that's on my to-do list. So I still have a lot of good expectations for this game. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it's been too much in the cooker that I hope it doesn't pull a Duke Nukem. I don't think it'll be that bad, but I do hope that it ends up being a real good game. And I'm glad that they start off with that. And then next up is Guerrilla Studios. And this is a studio that's been kind of an okay studio. They've been pretty much the Killzone studio. Ever since PlayStation 2, they've been associated with Killzone games. So now that they're making a game that's not Killzone, that's what makes things interesting. So everyone's wondering, what the heck is this going to be? You see caveman paintings, and you're thinking, oh, is this a prehistoric game? But no, this is a post-apocalyptic game. Now societies are coming together in almost tribal units. But now they have a mechanical menace that looms over. And you have a female protagonist who I find she kind of reminds me of a female Nathan Drake. But I think she's cool, even though Brian didn't really care for her voice acting as much, so to each their own. But what I found interesting about this demo was the art style looked great. It looked realistic, but not too over top. It kind of made me think of Heavenly Sword for the PlayStation 3. I know that seems kind of weird, but it kind of gave me that vibe. But it's a third-person shooter, but she's using these ancient built weapons like a crossbow, but augmented by mechanical future technology. So it's this weird mashup of prehistoric and future, but it seems to make sense. And that's what I think was really cool about it. And then in the demo, you have her just hitting this humongous thing with arrows, but then at the same time, she had to roll away and then use another weapon to latch it down, then use another, then blast it with like these little attach-on grenade arrows to then grab its own weaponry, this own thing that it just disarmed. She disarmed it essentially with the explosive, then use it against it. So there's you see this multiple use of very different weaponry being used just to take down this one big target, and it looks like a solid game. So I had to really give it up to Guerrilla Studios for this. The game, by the way, the name of it is Horizon. Sorry if I forgot to mention that off the bat, but this game Horizon looks awesome. I know I keep saying awesome a lot in my discussions. I guess it's just that key edge that comes to mind, but this game looks awesome, and I really have high hopes for it. I'm glad that it's not only a new IP, because I know I'm a big fanboy for new IPs, if I'm a fanboy of anything, but I love that the art style, it looks really interesting, but it also looks like a fun game. It wasn't just a trailer for a game like Recore, which was interesting by the talent behind it and just by the premise they get from it, but this is a gameplay trailer. This actually showed interesting gameplay where it was a third-person action game, but it had interesting weaponry in this interesting landscape. And it really looked like a cool overall experience, and I definitely can't wait for that. And I know it's going to sound kind of weird, but they had someone come up there to speak named Assad Kilgavash. Great name, by the way, man. I'm not really joking. That is a great freaking name. They showed off games such as Hitman, which the trailer was bouncing. I love the music. And I never really played many Hitman games, but this one sounds pretty cool because it's supposed to be adding new content for free for quite some time and new contracts, and it's supposed to be more interactive with the community. So I think it seems pretty cool. And what they also showed, of course, was Street Fighter V, which was announced as exclusive some time ago. And they showed a couple of new fighters. And they also announced the pre-order bonus is beta access, which is not the greatest pre-order bonus of all time, but it keeps evolving into a cool game. They have some cool mechanics that's layered in, so it seems kind of like it's trying to bridge the hardcore gamer of Street Fighter 3 with the slightly casual / hardcore elements of Street Fighter 4. So they don't want to make it too intricate, but then have those little intricacies in the game, not to bore the fighting community, because this Street Fighter is still the granddaddy of fighting games and fighting game tournaments. So they want to keep multiple bases, the casual fighter and the hardcore fighter, happy with this next iteration. And it's, from the videos, it looks like it's kind of succeeding on that. The art style is still pretty interesting. It's very similar to Street Fighter 4's, slightly more realistic or slightly less brushy, I guess is the proper term to say, for this art style. But I still think Street Fighter 5 looks pretty solid, and the fact that they show Cammy, she's a cool character, and Birdie, I never really cared for him, but looks like a pretty cool game so far. So Street Fighter 5, alright demo, wasn't mind blowing, but definitely something. And then what they showed was No Man's Sky, which this game always seems to be getting better by the minute when I see it. But of course, it's the thing, you have the creator of it showing off the game, and he was pretty much upfront. I only have 3 minutes. I'm just gonna pick a random planet and go to it. And he was pretty much, oh yeah, no aliens on this one. But then he bumps into aliens, and he bumps into fish, and it became kind of like fun, kind of like a fun little, here's a 3-minute playthrough. I'm just gonna go in it. I might screw myself over, but let's go through this demo. Whether this is really a scripted random event, I don't know. Probably is to an extent, but it still seemed like a solid game, and the idea of multiple planets and exploring, I love to explore. Even in EverQuest, which was an MMORPG, one of the things that hooked me onto that game for the first few months was just walking from one end to the other and exploring, even though I'd get my ass kicked because I didn't really level up as much. I just like exploring the little nooks and crannies of the huge world. So this idea of you exploring these multiple planets that might not have been explored by other people is interesting. But the thing is, will they execute on that promise is another thing entirely. It's so much built up on this game that now it could either knock it out of the park or become essentially a laughingstock. Not to play black and white with this, but there's so much built up anticipation for this game that it's either going to succeed on pretty much most of those promises and then become a huge hit, or it's not going to really succeed on many of those promises and become something where people are like, oh yeah, remember No Man's Sky and all those promises of planets? Well, most of those planets are empty, or insert criticism here. So I'm hoping for the best, and I think it's going to nail it. I really feel like it is going to be in the former category of actually nailing it versus the later category of being a flop. But maybe that's me really just going on faith here off of what I've seen. So what they also showed off was what Media Molecule was working on. Before, Media Molecule showed that you could take 2 move controllers and sculpt things. Well, now they showed this abstract concept of a game called Dreams, where now you're in a fervent nature of imagination doing these, I would believe, scripted events that could be shared across the community. But it's done now with the PlayStation 4 controller and its internal motion sensitivity and capturing of light bar, I assume, with the PlayStation Eye. Whether it's completely going to need a PlayStation Eye or not is a question that I feel that needs to be answered. But besides the point, Dream seems interesting. I love Media Molecule. I love Little Big Planet 1, 2. Even though 3 was made by different studios, I love Little Big Planet 1, 2, and 3. I do love Tearaway. That I love playing that on the Vita. So it really makes me interested what they're going to do here. It was a weird demonstration. The man that heads up Media Molecule essentially said that this is a hard concept to grasp by video alone. And I do feel like that. I don't know if this is going to be a game that's going to sell bonkers. Unless they really spread the message well of this game. It just seems really intricate, weird, and artsy. But at the same time, it could be something that would be fun to do. I mean, it could be something where you share these weird, almost hallucinations with other people, I know that sounds that I have a hard time explaining why I'm enthusiastic about this game without sounding like I'm some kind of drug dealer. So Dreams, cool. Another game they showed off was more of an indie title, but it actually caught my eye because I thought it seemed legitimately funny. I laughed a few times when they showed it off. Is Campo Santo's game known as, and sorry for mispronouncing the developer's name, but that's a great developer's name, by the way, Campo Santo. Their game Firewatch, which had this lead character playing around with his voice. He's communicating with the walkie. He's joking. He's like, "Hey, you kids, throw in a beer bottle." And it basically seems like he's a park ranger, from what I assume, or from what I gather from this video. But it's really funny. It's kind of cartoony. But then at the end of it, there's like, wait, who's in your tower? And it almost seems like it turned a twist to the dark, scary side. Or is this all fun and I'm just really or I'm just easily scared? Either way, the end bit kind of did a little twist, and it's like, boom, Firewatch. Leave it to your own your own imagination. But that seemed really cool. And another thing that we've seen in Ubisoft's conference was Assassin's Creed Syndicate. But what they showed was you get to play as the sister to the lead character, and that she's going to have her own exclusive missions, and it's only Sony. Outside of that, I mean, that's a big thing. Here's, not to get too off tangent, but that's the thing. Where Microsoft is showing things that were kind of coming out this year, that's what they emphasized in the conference. Well, Sony had to show more third-party content, but exclusive third-party content, because their first party looks great for the years ahead. But as for this year and somewhat the year prior, it's been kind of slow because their developers, essentially most of their developers delivered their content near the end of the PS3 cycle and then the beginning of the PS4 cycle, and they're working on PS4 games. So it's definitely, Sony's kind of like building up towards the later half or the mid half to later half of this generation, whereas Microsoft kind of front load their stuff because they kind of left it a bit of a ghost town during their 360s last year or so to allow that to happen. And I'll go into that more transition phase and my predictions in a sense when I talk about Nintendo's conference, but that will be another topic for another video. But back to the point is, that's the thing. So we had the Assassin's Creed Syndicate exclusivity. We had the exclusivity of some of their betas as well. No Man's Sky is a time exclusivity. So they showed this stuff. And then to get to the exclusivity, we have something like Batman, which is a game that's going to come out in less than a week from this recording. And again, exclusive content, exclusive Scarecrow missions. But what made this trailer very interesting was it showed a cop, and it was first person, and it was actually pretty spooky. So I don't know. I'm excited about the new Batman game, but it's kind of interesting that they're taking a few risks with this one. I don't think it'd be doing first person for really any part of the game beyond what they showed here, or maybe another little segment. Nor I don't think it'd be playing as cop more so than Batman. But it's pretty cool that they were willing to show off an interesting segment that was playing on a different emotion than just anger or mystery. Here's fear. This is Scarecrow, and the original Batman had its Scarecrow scary moments too. Don't get me wrong, but it was pretty. I like the Scarecrow, so I'm more pumped for Batman Arkham Knight, and I'm kind of satisfied that they showed off a little bit of interesting content and mentioned exclusivity. And on that rant of third-party exclusivity, here's the big, everyone predicted it, the big coup. Call of Duty. Now, we haven't seen Call of Duty in the Xbox, Microsoft's conference whatsoever, so it pretty much became confirmed at that point that Sony was going to show it off. Now, I'm not a huge Call of Duty fan. I think I mentioned this before. I don't hate the franchise. I loved Call of Duty 2, 3, 4, and then some random ones here and there sprinkled throughout, but I haven't been a devout fan. And so, pardon my, I don't want to say lack of enthusiasm, but, when they showed it, I know this is big news for the general gaming populace. Maybe not the biggest news catered towards me, but again, this is not a conference for me. And I guess, again, just to emphasize, I don't hate this franchise, but, I was kind of like, okay, they're going to show Call of Duty, and they're going to show that they're going to have exclusive maps. And I know this is a big win for Sony. Maybe not a big win for people like me that kind of got bored of watching Call of Duty conference playthroughs for multiple years, but hey, it's a big thing. It's a drop the mic moment of many that they had. Let alone, here's the big thing. They showed Last Guardian, which is a game that people didn't think was going to see a light of day at E3, but they also showed another game that people didn't think was going to. It's like Sony's reading journals of these little groups, not little groups, pretty moderate-sized groups of fan base. And one of those being The Last Guardian group, but another one being Final Fantasy. They showed Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, in the words of my good friend Tim, he almost cried watching the trailer, and he can't wait to play that game. Final Fantasy VII, I enjoy that game. I enjoy Final Fantasy IX more. I know I'm almost going to garner more hate for this video than my other ones, but I'm not trying to stem fires here. Let's love each other. We're all gamers. We all have our different tastes and opinions. But I do understand Final Fantasy VII's significance. And it was really cool to see this trailer. And I'm very interested in this remake from the perspective of this is not a HD remaster of a PS3 title. This is taking a PS1 game that was, if you play it now, doesn't really hold up well visually. You're taking this title and now you're going to give it a PS4 treatment. And this is a CG trailer. I don't know if this is going to be in-engine stuff, but it looks great. And I can only assume that this Final Fantasy VII is going to look so much better. And I wonder if they are going to mess with the fighting style. That might be the golden cow they might not want to touch, is the story or the gameplay. I'm wondering if they are going to do tweaks here and there to either of those golden cows of this game. Obviously, people don't care if the visuals are exactly the same, because these are the same people that didn't like the announcement of Final Fantasy VII, which was the PC version with the resolution of HD. So this is pleasing people that want to see a more realistic looking Final Fantasy VII. They want to see Cloud. They want to see Sephiroth. They want to see Aeris. They want to see this stuff. And it definitely looks cool that they showed it. And the other thing was, I never thought I was going to see a light game. And here's something I'm going to go off on as well. I love the Dreamcast. Short-lived but phenomenal system. And one of the games I really do like on it was Shenmue. And Shenmue was a really interesting game. It starts off slow. It takes place in about roughly, I believe, 1980s. It's been a while since I played it. Forgive my memory. But a 1980s idea of Japan. It was open world. You could have a job. You could play arcade games. It had quick time events before they became cliche. It had a fighting system because this game was developed by Yu Suzuki, who developed the Virtua Fighter series. And it was always promised to be like a quintology, but as we could tell, sales only made it a 2-game series, with the second one coming out on the original Xbox. So seeing something like Shenmue 3 becoming something, but was really interesting. But what made things even more interesting was the fact that they announced a Kickstarter. And there's two sides of the token. There's a lot of people that are disgusted at the aspect of a big company with a big bank showing off a Kickstarter. And there's the other side that's just like, they're just like, I don't care. The fact that Shenmue 3 is something that I could fund is great. Here's my thought on it. I'm a little bit in the middle on this. I was a little bit turb to think of a big company that has a bank saying, this game looks great, but we want you to fund it. But at the same time, $2 million is not enough. And what I mean by that is, even with projects not as ambitious as Shenmue was, $2 million is kind of hard for funding games, and this is something I've found out intricately throughout just not only reading articles but also funding games like Broken Age and things like that they had to go break it up in multiple parts to fund the projects. That $2 million is not enough. And the original Shenmue back in 99, 2000, that was the most expensive game to make. That was $150 million. I think about that. Back in the late 90s, early noughts, $150 million. Not many games approach that budget. And for that game to be $150 million, I'm not saying that Shenmue 3 is going to be worth $150 million, but I have a feeling it's going to cost more than $2 million. And the fact that if you go to Kickstarter, you know this, that there's only a PC version and a PS4 version, does tell me that Sony more than likely pretty much is going to fund about 90% of this game. They're putting a good amount of money in the game. They're probably trying to see if there's still a fervent fan base for this by essentially saying, give us $2 million, which they're probably going to use for marketing, and then probably just pretty much fund the game. Whether that's a good strategy or not, it'd probably be more tasteful if they made it a poll or a petition, official Sony petition of, we need this many signatures so we can fund this game, versus we want you to put money in on it, when pretty much they got money. So I could understand the disgust towards this, and then I could understand the reason why behind it as well. I do love the idea that the Shenmue 3 is coming to fruition, and I do love the Shenmue series to see this come through. I don't know if this is going to sell bonkers. I know that sounds weird now that it rose $2 million in less than a couple days, so I know I'm sounding like an idiot right now, but we have to remember that the original Shenmue and then Shenmue 2, with the people that did buy the games, they love those games. Don't get me wrong. But not enough people bought those games to meet the budget. So this game has to be more reasonably budget than the other two. And then we'll have to hope that based on word of mouth or maybe a growing fan base since those first two to pretty much make sure that it is a commercial success. And not to break things down to dollars, but this is a business. And I love the creative force. I do love original IPs, but I do understand why there's annualized IPs as well. And these tactics that are used, as greedy as they are, this is a capitalist system at work to the most part. So kudos to Sony for showing Shenmue 3. I still feel a little weird about it being an advertisement for a Kickstarter. But I do know, I feel almost 100% on this assumption that Sony is going to be financing some part of this game, probably the majority of the game as well. I will go out to say it. I feel like they're going to do more than $2 million off of their coffers for this game. And I do hope that they do put the money where their mouth is if they're going to get exclusivity, console exclusivity for this much rumored sequel to a franchise. And also in that same vein of exclusive games, they also showed off exclusive figure of Boba Fett, who's my favorite Star Wars character, but not for Star Wars Battlefront, but for Star Wars Twilight of the Old Republic, the new play sets for the Disney Infinity 3.0, which, that's got its customers. It's not me, but it's got its customers. So it's kind of a weird exclusivity to announce because it didn't really sound like many people, they thought they were going to see Battlefront and they ended up seeing this other thing. And I have to say, Twilight of the Republic, there's Knights of the Republic, Twilight of the Republic. It makes me think, is Jacob and Edward going to be Jedis or Sith? Yes, I did crack that super stupid joke. And I'm going to do 50 Hail Marys after this. And I'm not even Catholic. Please don't hate me. But, so Sony did show off a lot of exclusive, third-party exclusive content to try to keep their name out there. But let's get right back to it. They also showed indie games as well, like World War Toons. They did show the Morpheus, but the Morpheus is still not really known. I mean, Microsoft earlier in the day showed that they had Aka support, and they showed a Halo lens, and they kind of really, they put a Halo lens over the camera so you get an idea of it with Minecraft. But Sony, of course, it's still really hard to sell VR, and they announced that they do have 12 tech demo/games for this device. Again, this is something they have to demo off in stores for people to understand, and we have to still wait for a price for it. And it all lives and dies by price and developer support. It's going to be a hard peripheral to sell. I love the idea of VRs overall if it works. And again, it's just like I love the premise of the Kinect. But again, did that work out? It really didn't, unless you played Dance Central. That pretty much was the only game that worked with Kinect. I do hope VR works. I do like the idea of it. I would love to play a game like Adrift and have that auxiliary of a first-person experience. I mean, even I, who's easily scared and might give myself a heart attack, I would love the idea of playing Alien Isolation 2 with the VR headset. That would be crazy if it works. And if the price is right. I definitely don't want to drop $1,000 on a VR device, even though I have a feeling that it's going to cost triple digits. It's a bit of beefy tech to expect anything under $100 for, especially if Microsoft's going to charge a controller for $150. Sony's more than likely going to charge $150+ for the Morpheus. It's inevitable, but it seems like that's their idea of extending this life cycle, even though we just started getting into the life cycle. It seems like that's their second half plan that I think might divert off into its own product line as well. So Sony's conference had it start off last year, and what did it end off with is one of my favorite franchises of the last gen, Uncharted. I love Uncharted. It's pretty much out Indiana Jones in the video game scape. It was inspired by Tomb Raider, but now has Tomb Raider. It's being inspired by it. Uncharted 4 looks a little bit more open world. It looks like it's taking some pages from the Tomb Raider reboot, but it looks fun. It looks gorgeous. And I always knew that this was going to be a game I was going to get day one anyway, so the fact to see more gameplay of it was pretty cool. I do have to say it was kind of sad that they had a little technical hiccup, but I guess it proved that this was a live demo game. And to also trace on visuals, I also give kudos for EA earlier in the day showing Battlefront 4 on a PS4 system as well. So we know that these visuals are being obtained on these new set of systems as well. I know it's a weird little diversion to go off Uncharted 2 Battlefront, but I just want to say that as well. But I love seeing Sully. I love seeing Nathan. I like the fact that they still have a witty banter between each other. And it still looks like that's like almost reminds me of when they showed Uncharted 2 at E3 when they had the whole train sequence, and they had this sequence that they were in a Jeep and they're driving off hills, going through these little rural areas, and then just the water. He's lassoing onto it, and poor Nathan's body is taking a lot of punishment. I can't believe it that he's still alive. But Uncharted 4 looks great, and then it just didn't really had an ending. Like, after that demo, I don't know if they were crunched for time or what, but it just lights up, and that was it. There was no end speech or anything about PS4 is the place to go. And, you know, they also talked a little bit about PlayStation View that's going to have an a la carte model, which is pretty interesting. But, again, it was some weird little quirks here and there with the conference. But I love the conference overall. And I know that by the hardcore gaming reception of it, it seems very favorable. My personal rating of this conference is a B+. I think it was a really fun conference. It had a few hiccups here and there. And it definitely had some weird ending. And Adam Boyes is still a little weird to me. But overall, you know, Sony had a lot in their ballpark. I mean, Sony could have just pretty much relaxed. I mean, they're selling 22 million to about 10 million at this point in the game. And they could have easily just sit on their laurels. But the fact that they did show off games I did not think I was going to see the light of day, like Shenmue 3 and Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then show new IPs like Horizon, I give them a lot of kudos. But again, the drawback is these are games that are not coming out this year. These are games that are coming down the line. But again, E3 is all about showing off things down the line. Don't get me wrong, but you know you're going to have to wait for all these titles. Most of these titles they show is 2016. You have to wait for it. Versus Microsoft, which the strength of Microsoft was these are games that are coming out for the most part this year. So that's why there's a little bit of a grade difference here and there. And I know I said this in the first part, but I really am not. I don't care if Sony or Microsoft wins this. I want the best games possible, and competition fuels that. So I know this comes down to debate, but my personal opinion is Sony gets a B+, Microsoft gets an A-. Basically, not really much of a difference in the grade. They both did a great job. And what I gather from just this day alone is if you have an Xbox One or a PS4, you're going to have a great selection of games in different genres. And I know that seems like a cliche answer, but it's the let me swear here. It's the fucking fact that both companies showed off really great games and showed new IPs and had surprises in both their camps, and then some surprises that weren't quite surprises. And I'm just happy. I really am happy. I can't believe that I'm looking forward to Halo 5 and Gears, and at the same time looking forward to Shenmue 3 and Horizon as well, and then Recore, and then Batman next week. Like, there's so many good games coming out. Or they look good now, but they could be disappointments as well. I just am really, I don't know. If people want to throw me extra bills, I would really appreciate it. That'd be great. You know, I need to play games, and I need money for that. But I do have a job, so don't worry about me. Don't cry for me, Argentina. But thanks again for listening again to me discussing more about E3. Next time on Game Dingleberries, let's discuss. I'm going to talk about Nintendo's digital event for E3 and Squaresoft's conference, which I have a lot of things to say about both of those, both good and bad. So overall, I want to say great conferences, great E3 thus far. I love you all. If you want to watch more videos like this, we have great podcasts and videos and articles and vlogs even that just go from everything from barbecue to science to history to video games. We cover a lot on our website, which is redbuttonjamfest.com. You could click on this logo that's going to pop up magically here and visit the website as well. You could always send me an email at jimwa@redbuttonjamfest.com. It's Jim W.A. And I do invite you, if you do love to see more content like this, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I would love any viewpoints and criticisms as well, and thumbs up. I know if you want to do thumbs down, you could do that as well. Please don't. But please subscribe if you do like this, and I look forward to doing more Game Dingleberries Let's Discuss and doing more reviews in the future as well. Love y'all. Take care. Game on.